If I had been a minute late that day, maybe everything would have been different. I remember it so clearly. That day. The faint smell of chlorine in the air. Sunlight slanting through the old, dusty windows. A tired classroom. Scattered lazy eyes all around. I sat in the back, fidgeting with the tangled cord of my earphones. My gaze drifting, until he walked in. A wrinkled white shirt. A crooked tie. Something about him, messy and magnetic all at once. He just stood there. And somehow, the whole room leaned toward him. "Hello, I'm Parker." His voice was raspy. Like an old oak tree. I thought. I had heard that voice before. In some nameless dream. Our first lesson was about redox reactions. I don't remember much. Only that his eyes brushed past me. Paused for half a second. Long enough to make my heart skip. I smiled, instinctively. I thought, it was just a coincidence. I was wrong. In the weeks that followed, he called on me more than anyone. Asked me to come up to the board, even though I wasn't good at chemistry. His gaze, always different. Not the way a teacher should look at a student. I didn't tell anyone. Because a small, selfish part of me liked it. Once, he stood close behind me. His hand pointed at my notebook. Only a few inches between us. I could feel his breath, warm against my ear. "You're smarter than you think," he whispered. I blushed. Laughed awkwardly. My chest filled with something wild and unfamiliar. I was 17. He was 31. But in that moment, the outside world didn't matter. We started texting. At first, it was innocent. "Did you understand today's lesson? Don't forget your homework." Then the questions drifted. "What music do you like? Do you dream often?" I answered all of them. Told him even the stupidest dreams I had. He listened. As if my every word was some sacred secret. One night, he sent me a text. "If you were an element, what would you be?" I giggled. Typed back something silly. "Oxygen. Because everyone needs me." He replied. "I need you." My heart clenched. I read the message over and over. Smiling under the thin covers. I had never felt so special. The next day, I wore the prettiest outfit I had. White blouse. Pleated skirt. Hair tied back neatly, like girls in old movies. He looked at me differently. Not like a teacher anymore. Like a man. In that moment, I knew. We had crossed a line. After class one day, he stopped me. "Don't let anyone know we're texting," he said, voice low, almost like the wind. I nodded. Without thinking. I thought, he was protecting me. But somehow, somewhere deep inside, a small part of me sank. As if I had signed a contract with something I couldn't even name. And as I turned to leave, his hand brushed lightly against my wrist. Just a fleeting touch. But the echo of it lasted the whole night. Like a chain reaction that could never be undone. I knew. I had already started losing. Not every reaction ends beautifully. Some just destroy quietly. Some secrets don't scream. They whisper. Soft enough to make you lean closer. Close enough to pull you under. At first, it was harmless. Just glances. Just text messages. Just, almost. He started staying after class. Pretending to grade papers. Pretending not to watch me as I packed my bag a little too slowly. One afternoon, when everyone else was gone, he said, "Stay a little longer. I need help organizing the lab." I knew it was wrong. Every part of me knew. But still, I stayed. We moved beakers, test tubes, glass bottles that caught the fading light. I dropped a flask. It shattered. We both laughed. And then, the laugh died. He looked at me. I looked back. He stepped closer. I didn't move. I couldn't. His hand reached out. Tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. Slow. Careful. Like touching something he shouldn't. You're beautiful, he said. My heart slammed against my ribs. My breath caught. For a moment, the world spun slower. Just the ticking clock. Just the smell of chemicals. Just us. He didn't kiss me. Not then. He only touched my face, barely. But it was enough. Enough to change everything. That night, he texted me. You have no idea what you're doing to me. I stared at the screen until my eyes blurred. I wasn't a child. I wasn't stupid. I knew what was happening. And still I replied. I think about you too. From that night on, everything changed. In class, his voice softened when he spoke to me. When our eyes met, the world shrank down to a pinpoint. The others noticed. Whispered. Laughed behind hands. But I didn't care. Or maybe I cared too much. He started giving me extra credit assignments. Special projects. Excuses to meet outside of class. At the library. At the lab after hours. Once, even at a coffee shop 2 towns over, where no one would recognize us. There, away from fluorescent lights and chalk dust, he looked even more like a stranger. His tie loosened. His shirt sleeves rolled up. He was funny. Charming. Broken in ways that made me want to fix him. He asked about my dreams. My fears. My favorite books. He listened. Really listened. And when he smiled at me, it felt like I was the only girl in the world. One evening, after a study session that turned into 3 hours of talking about nothing at all, he drove me home. We sat in his car for a long time, not moving. Not speaking. I wanted him to kiss me. I was sure he wanted it too. The air between us crackled. Heavy. Sweet. He reached out, his fingers brushing mine where my hand rested on the seat. I could lose everything, he whispered. I didn't answer. Because deep down, I knew. I could lose everything too. But I was 17. 17 and stupid. 17 and starving for something I couldn't even name. So I looked at him. And I smiled. And I didn't pull my hand away. The first kiss wasn't dramatic. It wasn't fireworks. It wasn't rain and violins. It was soft. Sad. Almost apologetic. His lips tasted like coffee and regret. I kissed him back anyway. Because I thought, if he was willing to risk everything, maybe it meant I was worth it. I didn't know then that some risks don't end in triumph. Some just end. After the first kiss, everything should have felt brighter. Sweeter. Safer. But it didn't. It felt heavier. Like I was carrying something too big for my hands. Something sharp. He texted me less often. Only late at night. Only in whispers. In class, he barely looked at me. Only the smallest glances when no one could see. I told myself it was for my protection. That he was being careful. That he cared. But every class broke me a little more. Every time he called on someone else. Every time he smiled at another girl. Every time he acted like I didn't exist. It hurt. More than it should have. I started checking my phone obsessively. Waiting for the buzz that might never come. Building my whole world around a maybe. One day after class, I waited. Pretended to linger by my locker. Just to catch him walking by. He barely glanced at me. Barely smiled. And somehow that hurt more than if he had yelled. Later that night, I asked him. Did I do something wrong? Minutes passed. Then an hour. No reply. I curled into a ball in bed, staring at the screen, telling myself it didn't matter. It mattered. Finally, a reply. You need to stop acting like a child. This is serious. I stared at those words, tasted them, felt them burning down my throat. Child. Serious. I didn't understand. Or maybe I did. Maybe I just didn't want to. I apologized. Of course I apologized. I'm sorry. I'll be better. I promise. The next day, he slipped a note into my book when no one was looking. After school. Same place. The same place was a dusty storeroom at the back of the science building. No cameras. No windows. No questions. I ran there like a criminal. Heart hammering. Sweaty palms. Guilty excitement tangled with sick fear. He was already waiting. When I stepped inside, he grabbed my wrist, pulled me into the dark, kissed me hard. Desperate. Hungry. And for a moment, the world melted away. There was only the press of his body against mine. The taste of regret. When he pulled back, his hand stayed tight around my wrist. You can't act like this is a game, he said. His voice rough. Almost angry. It's not, I whispered. Good. His thumb brushed over my pulse. I could lose my job. My whole life. Because of you. Because of me. Because of me. The words echoed in my skull, carving little wounds. I nodded. Swallowed the lump in my throat. Told myself he was right. Told myself love was supposed to hurt. After that, he made rules. No more texting during the day. No eye contact at school. No asking questions. If I wanted to see him, I had to wait. Be patient. Be good. I agreed to everything. Of course I did. I would have set myself on fire if he asked. Anything to keep his gaze. Anything to stay his secret. And slowly, without even realizing, I started disappearing. I stopped sitting with my friends at lunch. Stopped answering their calls. Stopped looking in mirrors. Because when I looked too long, I didn't recognize the girl staring back. She looked tired. Hungry. Lonely. But I told myself it was worth it. That someday, when all the risks were over, he would choose me. He had to. Didn't he? One night, he called me. Not text. A real call. My hand shook picking it up. Can you come out? He asked. I miss you. That was all it took. I lied to my parents. Snuck out under the stars. Ran 3 blocks to where he waited in his car, engine running low. I slipped into the passenger seat. His hand found my knee in the dark. You're mine, he said. I nodded. But somewhere deep down, somewhere I didn't want to look, a tiny voice whispered, if you were really his, why do you have to hide? The hiding got worse. We used to text. Now it was burner apps. Messages that disappeared after reading. No traces. No proof. I learned to delete. Erase. Lie. It became second nature. Like breathing. He stopped asking about my dreams. Or my favorite songs. Or my fears. Now he only asked, where are you? Who are you with? Why didn't you answer? Every reply felt like a test. Every word, a trap waiting to snap shut. But still, I answered. Quick. Obedient. Because if I didn't, he would go silent. And that silence was worse than any punishment. It hollowed me out. I stopped going to parties. Stopped laughing. stopped living. My friends noticed. They cornered me one day after school. "You've changed," one of them said. "You're not you anymore." I laughed it off. Said I was busy. Said I was just tired. But inside, I wanted to scream. I wasn't tired. I was disappearing. Piece by piece. And no one could save me. Because I didn't want to be saved. Not if it meant losing him. One afternoon, after weeks of sneaking around, he texted me. "Come to my place." It was the first time. I stood outside his door, heart pounding so hard it hurt. I almost turned back. Almost. But he opened the door. And smiled. And just like that, I was his again. The apartment was small. Messy. Smelled like coffee and old paper and something else, something lonely. He kissed me the moment the door shut. Hard. Desperate. Like he needed to drown in me. I let him. Because needing him felt better than being needed. We stumbled toward his couch. His hands under my shirt. My breath hitching. It was fast. Fumbling. Not romantic. Not like the movies. It hurt. But I didn't say anything. I closed my eyes and told myself it was love. Afterwards, he didn't hold me. Didn't whisper sweet things. He stood. Pulled on his shirt. Lit a cigarette by the open window. And just like that, I felt more naked than I ever had. "You should go soon," he said, not looking at me. I pulled my clothes back on in silence. Fighting the sting in my chest. Swallowing it down. As I slipped out the door, he said, "Don't forget. You wanted this." I nodded. Even though every part of me was screaming. That night, I curled up in bed. The smell of his smoke still clinging to my hair. My skin. My soul. I stared at the ceiling. Blinking back tears. And for the first time, I wondered if maybe I had made a terrible mistake. The next day at school, he acted like nothing happened. Like I was invisible. The ache in my chest sharpened. Twisted. I thought about running to him. Begging him to look at me. To say something. Anything. But I stayed silent. Because I knew I wasn't supposed to exist in his world during the day. I was a ghost. A secret. A burden he carried only when the lights were off. And still I stayed. One night, when the ache got too loud, I texted him. "Do you ever think about us?" Minutes. Hours. Silence. Then finally, "Don't be naive." Those 3 words shattered something inside me. Something fragile. Something I could never get back. But I told myself it was my fault. That I had expected too much. That I was lucky he even looked at me at all. I swallowed it. Choked it down. Built walls around the broken pieces. I told myself, if I just loved him harder, he would come back to me. That's what love was, right? Giving. And giving. And giving. Until there was nothing left. The cracks didn't stay small. They split. Spread. Grew sharp edges. I noticed little things first. An unfamiliar necklace tangled in his passenger seat. Lip gloss smudged on a coffee mug. A faint whiff of perfume that wasn't mine. I told myself it was nothing. That I was imagining it. Paranoia. Jealousy. All those ugly things girls aren't supposed to feel. But the cracks widened. One afternoon, while he was in the shower, I did something I swore I never would. I touched his phone. It was lying on the nightstand. Unlocked. Buzzing with notifications he hadn't bothered to silence. My heart pounded so loud it made my vision blur. I told myself just one glance. 1. I opened his messages. And there she was. Her name flashing again and again. Heart emojis. Pet names. Plans. Promises. My hands went cold. My body frozen. I scrolled further. Photos. Selfies. A ring glinting on her hand. A wedding band. Married. He was married. The world tilted. Cracked open beneath me. I dropped the phone like it burned. Stumbled back. Hit the edge of the dresser. The pain barely registered. The shower turned off. Footsteps. His voice, casual. Hey, can you grab me a towel? I couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. I wanted to scream. Throw things. Run. But instead, I picked up a towel. Walked into the bathroom. Handed it to him with shaking fingers. He smiled. Took it from me like nothing was wrong. Because for him, maybe nothing was. Later, lying beside him, staring at the ceiling, I asked, "Do you love me?" He didn't answer. He didn't even flinch. The silence wrapped around us like a second skin. Heavy. Suffocating. I pressed further. Is there someone else? This time he turned his head. Looked at me. Expression flat. You're not a child, he said. You knew what this was. Every word sliced into me. Cold. Precise. I wanted to cry. Beg. Break. But all I did was nod. Like a good girl. Like the secret he could tuck away when it was convenient. On the ride home, he didn't hold my hand. Didn't even glance at me. I stared out the window. Watched the lights smear across the glass like bleeding stars. At a stoplight, he said, "You can't catch feelings. It'll ruin everything." As if the feelings weren't already drowning me. I bit the inside of my cheek until I tasted blood. Swallowed it down. Because what else could I do? I was 17. A mistake tucked into the dark. An afterthought. That night, lying in my bed, I replayed it all. The first glance. The first touch. The first kiss. The way he made me feel seen. Wanted. Chosen. And now, discarded. Like I was nothing more than a pastime. A curiosity. The phone buzzed. His name lit up the screen. Don't be dramatic. I still care about you. Care. Not love. Not want. Not need. Just care. The kind of care you give to an old sweater you don't wear anymore. Something familiar. Disposable. Tears blurred my vision. But I typed back anyway. Okay. Because even scraps of him felt better than nothing at all. And somewhere deep down, under all the shattered pieces, a question bloomed. If he could lie so easily, what else was he hiding? I should have walked away. I should have blocked his number. Burned every memory. Scrubbed him from my skin. But I didn't. I let him pull me back in. Again. And again. And again. It wasn't the same anymore. It wasn't soft. It wasn't sweet. It was desperate. Rushed. Rough. He didn't whisper sweet things into my hair. He didn't ask about my dreams. Now, he only asked, "Are you going to be good for me?" And I said yes. Every time. Because being good meant he might stay. Might still look at me. Might still pretend. I learned the rules. No showing up unannounced. No talking about feelings. No questioning his silences. And when I obeyed, he rewarded me. A text at midnight. A stolen hour in his car. A kiss bruising my mouth when no one was looking. Crumbs. That's all he gave me. But I clung to them like they were gold. Because when you're starving, even scraps taste like love. He started disappearing for days. Sometimes weeks. No explanation. No apology. When I asked, he would snap. I have a life, you know. I would apologize. Even when I hadn't done anything wrong. Especially then. Because somehow, somewhere along the way, he had convinced me that everything was my fault. If he was distant, it was because I was too clingy. If he was cruel, it was because I was too sensitive. If he pulled away, it was because I wanted too much. And wanting too much was the biggest sin of all. I stopped talking to my friends altogether. They stopped trying. I failed 2 classes. Barely noticed. The girl I used to be, bright, curious, laughing at stupid jokes, was a ghost now. Someone I barely remembered. The only thing real anymore was him. And even that wasn't real, not really. But I held on. Tight enough to leave bruises. Because letting go felt worse than bleeding. One night, he called me after midnight. His voice low. Urgent. Come over, he said. I didn't hesitate. Threw on a sweatshirt over my pajamas. Slipped out the window like a thief. The streets were empty. The wind biting against my skin. The world felt hollow. Like I didn't belong in it anymore. When I got to his apartment, he was pacing. I barely got through the door before he grabbed me. Pressed me against the wall. Kissed me hard enough to hurt. There was no tenderness. No asking. Just taking. Afterward, he lit a cigarette. Sat on the edge of the bed, staring out the window. You can't ever tell anyone, he said. Voice flat. Final. I know, I whispered. He looked at me then. Really looked. As if seeing me for the first time. You think this is love, he said. Don't you? I didn't answer. Didn't know how. He laughed. Bitter. Mean. This isn't love, baby, he said. This is survival. I didn't understand. Not then. I only knew the way my chest hurt. The way the room felt too small. The way my skin felt too tight. He stood. Walked to the kitchen. Poured himself a drink. And while he stood there, back turned, something slipped from the counter. A photograph. Falling face up onto the floor. I picked it up. It was him. Standing with a woman. A child clinging to his leg. A little girl. She couldn't have been more than 5. My breath caught. Not just married. Not just lies. He had a family. A real one. A permanent one. And I was. What? A secret. A toy. A distraction. I put the photo back where it fell. Said nothing. What was there to say? I stayed that night. Curled up on the far edge of the bed. Staring at the crack in the ceiling. Counting the seconds until morning. Until I could pretend none of it mattered. But it did. God, it did. Because for the first time, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't just losing him. I was losing myself. The days blurred. I floated through them. Half awake. Half alive. I didn't see him much after that night. Maybe he was busy. Maybe he was guilty. Maybe he just didn't care anymore. I waited anyway. Like a stray dog outside a locked door. One afternoon, my phone buzzed. A message. Need to see you. Urgent. My heart stumbled. I threw on a jacket. Didn't even think. The meeting place was strange this time. Not his apartment. Not the usual hidden corners. It was a motel. A rundown place on the edge of town. The kind where no one asks questions. When I got there, he was already waiting. Leaning against the doorframe. Arms crossed. Jaw tight. He didn't smile. Inside, the air smelled of mildew and old secrets. The curtains drawn tight. He didn't touch me. Didn't kiss me. Just sat on the bed. Head in his hands. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Finally, he looked up. And there was something different in his eyes. Something cold. Final. "I can't see you anymore," he said. The words didn't surprise me. Not really. The ache in my chest had been building for weeks. Months. Still, hearing them out loud. Hurt in a way nothing else had. I nodded. Silent. Small. He stood. Paced the room. Ran his hands through his hair. "There's something else you need to know," he said. I didn't want to hear it. I already knew too much. But he kept talking. "You're not just some random girl, you know," he said, almost laughing. "You're connected." I frowned. Heart hammering. Blood rushing in my ears. "What do you mean?" I whispered. He looked at me then. Really looked. And the look made my stomach drop. "Your mother," he said. "I knew her. A long time ago." I shook my head. Not understanding. Not wanting to. He kept going. "I dated her. Years ago. Before you were born." Silence. A heavy, screaming silence. I opened my mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. No words came out. He exhaled. Sat back down on the bed. "She never told you, did she?" he said. "About your father?" I shook my head. "No. I'm not your father," he said quickly. Like that would make it better. Like that would fix any of this. "But, we have the same bloodline." The room tilted. Same bloodline. Same. Blood. I stared at him. Saw every kiss. Every touch. Every whispered lie. Replayed through a new, monstrous lens. Half-siblings. Half. Almost. It didn't matter. It was enough. Enough to make everything inside me shatter. He reached for me. I jerked back like he had slapped me. "Don't," I said. My voice barely a whisper. Barely human. He stood up. Frustrated. Angry. "It's not like we knew," he snapped. But it didn't matter. Knowing. Not knowing. The damage was done. Carved into my skin. Etched into my bones. I stumbled out of the room. Into the night. Into the freezing air. I ran. Faster than I ever had. Like I could outrun the truth. Tears blurred the world. Made the streetlights smear like ghosts. By the time I reached my house, I was shaking so hard I could barely breathe. I collapsed onto my bed. Pressed my face into the pillow. And screamed. Not loud. Not wild. Just a low, broken sound. Over and over. Because how do you grieve something that never should have existed? How do you mourn a love built on lies, on rot, on blood? I didn't know. I still don't. All I knew was this. Whatever innocence I had left. It died that night. If you're still listening. Thank you. I don't know why you would. Maybe you see a little bit of yourself here. Maybe you're just curious how it ends. Maybe you're waiting for a happy ending. I'm sorry. There isn't one. After that night, I stopped speaking. I drifted through school like a shadow. I let my grades rot. Let my friendships die. I couldn't bear the thought of anyone touching me. Not even by accident. Not even in kindness. I stopped dreaming. Stopped wanting. Every breath felt like a betrayal. Of the girl I used to be. Of the love I thought was real. I thought about telling someone. A counselor. A teacher. My mother. But the words caught in my throat. Turned into ash. Because how do you explain something that makes no sense? How do you tell someone you fell in love with the worst version of yourself? How do you admit that somewhere deep down, you still missed him? Not the man he really was. Not the monster. But the dream. The illusion. The person who made me feel seen for the first time in my life. Even if it was only so he could use me. Even if it was only to destroy me. I spent months building myself back piece by broken piece. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't clean. It was crying on bathroom floors. It was throwing away clothes that smelled like him. It was deleting his number and still remembering it by heart. It was forgiving myself. Again and again. And again. Some days I still hate that girl. The one who stayed too long. Loved too hard. Hoped too much. Some days, I miss her. Because she believed in magic. And even if it destroyed her. There was something beautiful in that kind of faith. I don't believe in magic anymore. But I believe in survival. I believe in waking up even when you don't want to. In eating breakfast even when it tastes like dust. In breathing. In staying. I'm still here. Maybe that's the only happy ending we ever get. Still being here. Still fighting. Even when your hands are shaking. Still hoping. Even when your heart is cracked open like a fault line. Still telling the story. Even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. Because somewhere out there. Maybe there's another girl. Sitting alone. Reading this. Feeling less alone. And if I can give her even 1 second of light. Then maybe it was worth it. Maybe. Thank you for staying until the end. Thank you for listening to a broken girl trying to put her pieces back together. If this story touched you, leave a comment. Tell me your story. Or just say hi. We heal louder together. And maybe, if you're still here for the next chapter, I'll be ready to write it.